All right. I'd like to call to order this regular Board of Education meeting for the School District of Sturgeon Bay for Wednesday, December 18th. Could we rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Denise, can we do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Meyer. Here. Commissioner Hawes. Here. Commissioner Chisholm. Here. Commissioner Jenner-John. Here. Commissioner Stefani.
Here.
Commissioner Cruz.
Here.
Commissioner Howard.
Here.
Commissioner Scholes is excused. Commissioner Spritka.
Here. Excellent. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda in your packet or as presented here in front of you?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Hawes, second by Commissioner Cruz to adopt the agenda. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Student council report is next, but I think Izzy is busy tonight, right? So we're just gonna wait till next time.
I'm sure she'd be here if she put it all.
Yep, yep.
She's involved in many
She's
things.
everywhere. I saw her last night at the one of the concerts, so she is involved.
There's something exciting from the high school. I'm sure Principal Nerby can hit on it when he gives us his brief report later.
Yes.
And I say brief, not to cut him off. He told me today it was brief, so.
Oh, okay, all right. Next, we're down to the public comment section. Do we have, I don't see anyone. I think we have
a visitor.
Visitor in the audience. That's hello. Any public comment? No? All right. So, public comment section, I think we're good there. So we'll go right down to the consent agenda. The consent agenda, consists of the following: approving the meeting minutes of November 20th and December 4th. Approve the November bills that were in your packet. Accept grants and donations, which are the follow. Max and Gail Leonard Educational Fund. We have $500. The Sawyer Self-Regulation Alternative Education Program. $500 C Perch Project. $349 for the Translating the Pen Scanner. $269 for Native American Heritage Month. And I don't know if
The teacher name behind would be kind of like the
Yeah.
mini grant recipient, if that makes sense.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we had numerous, so I'm
Yeah,
just.
you're good there. Yeah.
$490 for the Sunrise Clubs, $500 for esports uniforms, $500 for Spanish 3 field trip, $450 to the classroom library, $500 to the town, TJ Walker marching program, $500 to expand the chess club to game club. Fifth grade C Perch, there's the following: $100 Jennifer Rebecca Trust, $25 Kristen Jean Court, $25 the Kirk family, $25 anonymous. $77 from the Sean Wadier by Sean Wadier for the Sunrise ID Autism Room. Another $77 also from Sean Wadier for the same. And then $77 from Sean Wadier for the lunch program. Elementary playground keeps going. We have $25 from Janet Saran. We have $7,000 from Green Bay Packer Foundation, $25 from Deb White-Gorski. And now we are down to the resignations and retirements. Lola DeVillers is retiring from her teaching position at Sunrise. David Winek is retiring from his associate position at DCAP. Stacy Chyler is retiring from her maintenance position. Kim Gordon is retiring from her human resource specialist position effective September 30th, 2025 in the business office. And Carla Akawa is retiring from her food service position. Point five, approve Sturgeon Bay High School course description book for 2025-2026 school year. Course selection and scheduling process gets underway well before the end of the year. The course description guide comes to you for approval in the winter. Changes are highlighted in the Sturgeon Bay High School principal report from Mr. Nerby that's in your packet. Point six, approve the TJ Walker Middle School course offering for the 25-26 school year. Very similar to what we read about for the high school. So in your packet, a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented is recommended. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
You have a motion by Commissioner Sturgeon, a second by Commissioner Jenner John to approve the consent agenda as presented. Further discussion?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
So this Max and Gail Laird Educational Fund, is that sort of like an annual opportunity for the teachers to get grants?
I believe it is exactly that. It's grant, it's proceeds from grant writing.
Yeah, I don't know the full history of how many years that's been happening, but I look at it as mini grants. I mean, a couple of the principals might be able to comment on that a little more closely to it, but I think another example, as we acknowledge to the public every month, of some really some supportive individuals, families, foundations, and so forth. And I think that's why I kind of threw the mini grant word in there. Yeah, through Sturgeon Bay Community Foundation. Thank you, Ann. Through like the name you see in parentheses, right? Mike didn't have to acknowledge it because that's not the donation, but like where that is going.
Okay.
Right, and who was involved in maybe bringing that into the district, if that makes sense to the board.
Well,
Yeah,
thanks.
good question.
And as we look at that, I mean, you can see how varied it's across, you know, many departments and classrooms. So definitely not just one thing. So it's outstanding. Wait, we had the motion, the second, but that was further discussion. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So now we're to the operations agenda. Our first order of business is approve a teacher associate, Jenny Applegate.
Thank you. Now, just the one associate position this month. Director of Pupil Services, Lindsay Ferry, recommends Jenny Applegate as the virtual programming coordinator for us, right? You've heard Lindsay talk a little bit about this as we look to the future in supporting kids and families. I'll go back to the notes. Jenny has previously worked in our district as a special education teacher associate, and in that role demonstrated skills in program planning, organization, and in communication. Jenny's eager to continue her partnership with our district as she works with our Director of Pupil Services to create virtual learning opportunities for students throughout the district, in addition to those, as we look to the future, potentially in neighboring districts. Jenny has earned her master's degree in organizational psychology. I'll no doubt bring strong leadership skills back to our team as we're continuously, looking ahead to future growth opportunities. And we want to kind of welcome back, as Lindsay writes here, to the team, Jenny. So a motion to approve Jenny Applegate as a district virtual programming coordinator is recommended.
I'll move to approve Jenny Applegate as a district virtual programming coordinator.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Chisholm, second by Commissioner Hawes to approve Jenny Applegate as the district virtual programming coordinator. Do we have further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I can just briefly comment on that too, not to get ahead of Lindsay. We'll comment on that probably briefly tonight. Again, you've heard her talk about it before, and then you'll see in parents and public more information on that in the weeks, months ahead, if you will. So that's why it was timely. I wanted to throw that in for you.
Perfect. And now we are to approve a high school musical director.
Yes, high school principal Keith Nerby is pleased to recommend Sophie Weidman for the high school musical director for our 2024-2025 performance. Sophie grew up in California. However, she graduated from Ripon College with a degree in theater arts. She currently works as marketing director at Northern Sky Theater, of course, here in Door County. Sophie has both performed and directed various musicals and plays over the years. Further, current managing director of Northern Sky, and of course, someone many of us know, as far as parent of some of our grads, Holly Feldman, highly recommended Sophie for the position. Sophie has an infectious personality and demonstrates passion and excitement for the arts. So a motion to approve Sophie Weidman as the musical director here at Sturgeon Bay High School for a musical is recommended.
Make a motion to approve Sophie Weidman as the musical director for the Sturgeon Bay High School musical.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Haas, second by Commissioner Howard to approve Sophie Weidman as the musical director with the Sturgeon Bay High School musical. Any discussion? Further discussion? I will just point out, we are so lucky that we live in an area that we have this opportunity, that we have people that can really even do this sort of thing that are right here in our community. This is not normal if you were in wherever, Wisconsin. I'll pick on my hometown. There was nobody around Seymour that was like this. So we're very blessed by that. So
And maybe I should just add, the board knows this, but it's like a coaching position, right? It's not a full-time, faculty position or anything like that. It's really, in many ways, a person doing that is doing that kind of out of the goodness of their heart, so to speak. And we know we have kids and family and staff that are passionate about it. So,
but it's great to have that
Yeah.
opportunity.
Great.
So, all right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, next we have to approve a school nurse.
yes, and the board has heard some of the history on this, right? Way back in the day when I was hired, we employed a school nurse for a period of time and a few different nurses. And we worked with the hospital for a while, and now kind of pendulum is swinging back to employing a school nurse and still working on the side with the hospital yet this year. So I'll go back to the notes. Director of Pupil Services, Lindsay Ferry, and our entire admin team are eager to recommend Tabitha Humphrey for the school nurse position. Tabitha has been a registered nurse for almost a decade, serving as a nurse for private organizations, DCMC, and even a year as our school nurse. So we know her from that as well. Tabitha has earned her associate's degree in nursing, will finish her bachelor's degree in nursing during the summer of 2025. Tabitha is excited to come back to Sturgeon Bay as she graduated from our district, and will have 3 of her children graduating from the district as well. The team believes Tabitha will bring consistency to our nursing team so that our district students, staff, and of course, families can build trusting relationships with a reliable team member from year to year. So welcome back, Tabitha. A motion to approve Tabitha Humphrey as our school nurse for the district is recommended.
Make a motion to approve Tabitha Humphrey as the school nurse for the district.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Haas, second by Commissioner Chisholm to approve Tabitha Humphrey as the school nurse for the district. Further discussion?
I have a question. Will she float among the 3 buildings?
Okay, so she would be our RN, right? So districts need an RN to oversee health plans with that type of certification. And then we're still looking at contracting with the hospital to get through this year with LPN support. Since to your point, I think Angie's spot on, right? She can't be everywhere at once. So school secretaries do a great job of helping. She would oversee, and then we'd still partner with the hospital who would kind of fill in some LPN time, similar to what we have been doing. And then we'll talk kind of as the year goes on and continue to talk with the hospital about, does it make sense to maybe bring in our own LPN in the future? And then theoretically, is there maybe an area district that might want to share some time with us, or how we navigate that? But yes, one place at a time, but serving all 3 campuses, you are correct.
So they're pretty busy.
Yeah,
They got a lot, they got a lot going on.
For sure.
Because we, but I mean, just actually on top of the medication that's, for the kids across the district.
Yeah, and again, not to go too far on a crosstown bus for the group, but as you know, while again, enrollment across Wisconsin, including in Door County and Sturgeon Bay, right, is on a slight decline, whichever terminology you want to use, we know that percentage-wise, we have more students or more families, maybe I should say, with a student who has some sort of health concern. So a lot of individual health plans. You mentioned, Mike, you're right on, right? We certainly have more students that have some sort of medication need during the day and are going to their school's office to take it, right? And each office has protocols for how that's locked up. So overseeing all that, we know, and I think Lindsay did a nice job of championing this and talking to people, like having we appreciate the partnership with the hospital for sure, but having a consistent individual that not just our kids, but our parents know, like, okay, here is my go-to for the health plan. Like, yes, the hospital's been helping us, but there's different people involved, again, which is no one's fault. Looking for that consistency, we felt it was probably time to try to bring that back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. School safety drill summary.
Yeah, this is an informational item. But again, I'll just kind of summarize for the notes, and anyone from the public certainly can see this. We've got kind of 2 short paragraphs. So in recent years, districts are required to perform at least one school safety drill a school year. All right, and so that we have to document, and in the next month, I have to certify with the state that, yes, we've done our safety drill. The reality is, and the board has heard this a number of times, typically our schools hold at least a quarterly drill, but we don't have to document every one of those to the board. And again, we're not in the situation, as we've spoken a little more in past years, unfortunately, very timely with the terrible situation in Madison on Monday, right, where we don't do active shooter drills with our kids, especially our little kids, like some places did years ago, right? It's kind of found that's probably not that effective and might do more harm than good, but appropriate to the school level, whether it's Sawyer High School or everywhere in between, that at least quarterly, we're doing different safety drills. So students and staff and parents as appropriate know what's going on. Again, this just kind of checks that box with the state, so you're informed that, yes, we do that. Second paragraph just mentions, as you see in your packet, as I'm pointing at my laptop, sorry, that we have a report from each school, right? Middle and high school on one campus usually works together as their report reflects, and then a report from Sunrise, as well as the Sawyer campus about the example safety drill that they did. So again, no board action needed, but we put that to show that, yes, that has been reported.
Next, we have open enrollment capacity. We have spoken about this in a couple of meetings, but we have some information.
Yeah, so I'm not going to read that whole, I have a little more description in here than usual due to the changes, but again, for anyone tracking this or maybe watching the recording later, I've got 3 paragraphs of information, and so I can just kind of go off the cuff. So historically, for a number of years, our district did not set any capacities for open enrollment, right? So that was the system we were on prior to me being hired, and really my first, I don't know, whatever it was, 2-3 years, right? Then we kind of went with a system where, again, I used the example from my previous district when some different things changed around special education and open enrollment and the dollars and all that got a little more complicated, and there were some physical challenges around not having any capacities. We then established capacities for all regular ed classes by graduation year, if you will, as well as in special ed. As we've looked at the last 2 years, and again, as the board has heard several times, so I'm really summarizing for others more than the board. We got to a point where there's some fine print with DPI and some challenges around, even if we set capacity and there is some level of space, just by simply setting capacity, DPI then says, well, hey, even though this is next year's capacity, right? So next month, right, you'll officially act on this. Even though it doesn't go into effect officially till next year, that means between now, in essence, and next year, if someone through the alternate application process, right? So I mean, open enrollment really has a window, but arguably it's year round now, right? So that alternate process, the family can't bring their child into the grade, even if we're interested in allowing them come in, if it's like, oh no, a capacity has already been established for that grade, right? So it doesn't make a lot of sense. I think whether Amy, our present data person, or Casey Manders before her, right? People have communicated with DPI on our behalf to try to understand. And DPI has acknowledged, we realize that, I'll paraphrase it, it may not make a lot of sense because it is next year, but that's how we interpret it. So the admin team has talked the last, I'll say probably 3 years, maybe a little bit more kind of earnestly the last 2 years about, as the district looks to the future, well, yes, we don't want to invite students and families in when we really don't have capacity. We're probably not necessarily doing schools and the district a service by trying to do what's right and causing families and the district some unanticipated consequences. So long story short, as you heard at the learning session, the plan is to have next month, again, no action now, the board approve capacities where we're not setting regular education capacities, whether it's an elementary grade level or middle school or high school, because we know we've been able to accommodate the students that came in, just like we would accommodate any family that moved in that we had to take anyway, right? But then still keep some capacities in special education based on the number of students and staff we have. All right, so one last thing I'll comment on that, again, more so for others that are interested. Lindsay's sketching out, we've talked about a few different ways, 2, maybe even 3 ways to say, hey, just as we approved elementary class sections in the last several years where it could be this many kids if we have 3 sections of, say, 5th grade. Or it could be this many kids if we had 4 sections of 5th grade. Lindsay's working on doing something very similar in special education, even though it's a little harder to understand, like, oh, if we have this staffing level, here's how many kids we can accommodate. But at the same time, ooh, if we have fewer kids and maybe reduce staffing level, then we can only accommodate so many kids, right? So Lindsay's working through like, what's the easiest way for all of us to understand that? And then obviously for families that may be inquiring in the future for them to understand that. All right, so that's where we're at. We believe right now that yes, a problem, something could pop up with all of a sudden a bunch of kids coming in one particular class over the summer. But we also know, in theory, that could have happened in the past anyway. If they're resident students, of course, we're going to serve them. So long story short, the plan is next month, have you approve no capacities for regular education students, because we've been able to accommodate those, but still potentially have capacities around some staffing parameters on the special ed side. Lindsay, did I miss anything important there? That works. All right, so that, again, informational item this month, but the way we've done it in recent years, it's always nice to make that a public thing so no one thinks, oh, why a quick decision, or especially in the years where there's a little bit of a change. President Stefani, unless there's a question, that's all I have.
Nope. I think we go to the next point, understanding the relationship between the tax levy approval and property tax bills. Now, this kind of came up, I'll kind of set the table a little bit. Many of us received tax bills recently, right? And there might be some question, as I had, looking at the tax bill, because we had approved a certain amount, and then it actually said on my tax bill and others, and I got calls, not many, two, about, hey, why does it say an 8% tax increase when we approved a 6.96, I believe, yes. So, here we go. Here's the answer. So I don't know if you're gonna give or Jake.
Well, I'll set it up.
Yeah.
And just, Jake came from his daughter's Christmas program.
Yeah,
So that's why here we.
coming down from that.
We
yeah.
timed the agenda. That's why this and the next item are a little bit later, even though normally we do all the action stuff first, then the informational. And I think going back, Vice President Jenner, President Stefani and I, as well as Jake thought, as this comes up, right? And we had a bunch of communication with the city, which again, Jake will summarize that for you. Plus we know we have a one-page document here anyone's entitled to. We thought, hey, why not make this a teachable moment, right? I kind of channeled my inner teacher from the days gone by and say, let's just have an information item in the school board meeting about, hey, how has this worked? And what is the dynamic for it this year as well? So there's kind of the tee up. I happened to be at City Hall the one day, and I know Jake had some conversations with them, and he's got some information. Maybe Jake, you assembled a nice one sheet, 2-page document, just kind of walk us through that, and then we'll see what questions or anything the board might want to highlight for the public.
I was a little nervous coming in because there were a number of cars up front. But anyway, so yeah.
I think we have bummy basketball in the gym, and who knows what else going on here this time of year.
But the basic question is, why is our tax levy showing a different increase or decrease than what's showing up on tax bills? And there's a couple things going on this year in the district, in the town of Sevastopol, and then the city of Sturgeon Bay within our district. In the town of Sevastopol, they did a reassessment, a town-wide reassessment, similar to what the city did a couple of years ago in 2020. That saw property values, a number of property values skyrocket in the town of Sevastopol. So our portion along Bay Shore Drive are seeing some large increases percentage-wise. The way tax bills are proportioned out is the city, the municipality receives the total levy from each area, the taxing jurisdiction, if you will. The city, the county, state, technical college, school, public school. Then they proportion that out to the taxpayer based on the taxpayer's portion of the total property value, right? So that matches up. So when somebody's tax bill goes at a higher rate than somebody else's, that means their property value increased at a bigger rate than somebody else's. And that's basically what's going on here. The big culprit in the city of Sturgeon Bay is that there were a number of TIDs opened this past year. So when TIDs open, the tax base, our taxable base for the TID remains flat until that TID closes. And so, at the same time, the taxable value of the average Joe's property is increasing at, the same rate across the board. Everybody in here, unless you did some kind of renovation, or had some reason to have a reassessment, your, taxable value increased by 9.7% in the city. So what happened is we had these TIDs open and those values are increasing at 0%. Meanwhile, your property value is increasing at 9.7%. Normally, this change in property value works in the average taxpayer's advantage. It just so happened that this past year, there were a number of TIDs that were opened. My understanding as well as the shipyard, which isn't in the TID, didn't get as large of an increase on their assessment as the city was expecting. So that's the basic reason of why there's a discrepancy. In my write-up, you can see very rarely does our increase match up with the average taxpayer's increase. Our increase or decrease. In fact, this year, by happenstance, this is as close as it's been in 5-6 years. Yeah, so with the TIDs, it should go back to really the norm of within a jurisdiction, within a municipality, generally, you're gonna see property values increase and new additions, new builds, businesses opening, that are gonna increase that property value pot, if you will. So it should write itself going forward. That the average taxpayer is not gonna see as big of an increase as what our actual increase is. And then in a couple of years, TID 2, which is downtown, which has been open for 30 years, will close. So that'll be the next one, and I think the last one within the district that'll have a major impact. There's more TIDs that are relatively smaller by value size or expected value size. But yeah, the next one's gonna be in a couple of years that'll close.
Yeah, the industrial park is also,
That's the one that recently closed,
Yes.
that where we saw last year, where our levy was even, everybody's tax bill decreased by 8.5%. So,
and just to remember the point of these TIDs. You know, anyone can drive around our area and see all the like apartment buildings and see the development that has happened. Well, I've learned being on the committees
Yeah.
and so forth that, you know, the reality is those kinds of development do not happen without having some kind of infrastructure help for tax incentives by a jurisdiction. It just doesn't happen otherwise. We could wish it so, but it really, you can talk to anybody in the city or any other jurisdiction, they'll tell you this. So if there isn't that kind of help on the front end, that developer will just go to a different place.
and I think one of the things too to note is that a number of the TIDs that were open are in residential areas.
Yes,
So taking the industrial park as an example, prior to that, now I wasn't living here, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that was open space,
Mhm.
right? So there was zero value or just land value, if you will. And so that's not increasing at that same 10% that you guys saw this year in property value. Or that 10% is a small increase. But with the residential areas included, that's where where it kind of got hit a little bit this year. So,
But also, we have to look at the long term, like every time. Some of these things like apartment buildings, condos, hopefully single family. Units we know that some of that is proposed, although that's different school district that will really affect, but. They're filled immediately, right? We remember a few years back, we had a new teacher here that was driving from around the drink, like Oconto area, wasn't Oconto, Dan? I'm trying to remember where they were driving from. It was because they could not find anywhere to live in Sturgeon Bay. The hospitals had the same sort of thing. So we need to do this because we need our kids to have places to live. So this is all good. And remember, once the TID closes and this increased tax benefit then comes to the city and then ultimately to the taxpayer. Because when these developments come online after the TID, that's an increased tax benefit. So Jake did say it, but I think it bears repeating, like the industrial park, when that closed, that helped the tax base, because suddenly those taxes from the businesses went into the general coffers to bring taxes down. So last thing I'll close, sorry, I'm talking a lot here, is that we didn't take raising, if you watch our last board meeting when we raised the levy, the 6.96. I mean, we've been holding that steady for years, and we kind of had some things, and I can go into detail. Jake can, Dan can, if anybody wants to, like why the increases. Well, one of it is, one thing is inflation. Everybody that's watching this knows that things have gone up. That's one thing, and there's a couple of other things that have happened that we just we were forced that we had to do that. We need the revenue to operate the district, and it's as simple as that. So we are not a business that we can raise prices to come to do that. Unfortunately, the only thing we have is the levy, and we don't take it lightly. So
I have a really quick question
yes,
on the TIDs. There's one on Egg Harbor Road.
yes.
Is the new hotel gonna be part of that? If there is a new hotel, is that part of the TID too? Or is that something?
I'd have to look at the map.
I believe it is.
Yeah.
On the map,
It is.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I've got-
Yeah, and there's some other things there too that have not happened yet that are also within that TID.
Yeah.
So it would be down 14.
Right.
Down 14.
Right.
And you have not seen, because that's not fully.
Right.
Fully inked what's happening there, but I know there's things that are slated in that TID.
So we won't see immediate tax dollars on that,
No, because it takes
right? Because
years to pay off that.
Yeah.
That infrastructure changes,
So two things on TID formations going forward. I made mention of it. There was a recent legislation at the state level in talking with Spencer Gustafson. That will probably, he expects to slow down the formation of TIDs so that it's only beneficial to do a general term, but a big TID, think of Fleet Farm, right? Where you're taking that vacant land and building that big business. The smaller ones, based on this legislation, just aren't gonna be worth it for the city going forward. So I think we'll probably see a slowdown in the future of residential areas. And then the big ones will be probably more spread out.
I have a follow-up question.
Yep.
You mentioned that some of them, graduate out of TID tax, like status. Do they all have the same timeline, or what are the metrics for going from a TID to being taxed?
Mike, you might be more informed on.
Yeah, the short answer is yes, the timeline is different on each one, right? And and they do have different time durations depending when they started and how big it is. So, yes, short answer is yes, they're not uniform. It's not like they're all 15 years or 10 years or.
So they're like negotiated by the people that are trying to build on the TID.
It's gonna be
With the city.
dependent on,
We want infrastructure.
Yeah,
incentives and all the incentives and improvements going in the district and the TID. And how long it takes to pay those.
Got it.
for example, the TID that we did when we decommissioned the school, you know, now there's a lot of, there was apartment building and there was the duplexes that are all there. Well, there was sidewalk, there were some sidewalk things, there was some general updates to that area for like, you know, for the participants close to that area, but that isn't as huge of a TID as industrial park or, you know, so it's not, I don't believe
A
it's like,
30-year TID is few and far between.
yeah. And some of them are retired early, right? So if it's performing well, then the timeline, we get notification on that. You know, on all of those. I mean, I'm the board liaison for that committee and we just had, I think in August, they went through each and every TID and what was happening and how it's performing and what everything is happening in it. And I would say all but one looked very good, right?
Three quick thoughts, and then Commissioner Spritka hit it on that, right? What's the infrastructure that has to go in to that part of town, that development, et cetera? How expansive is it? How much needs to be invested? So then depending on what is going in there, how quickly, right, is the city recouping that investment, so to speak? Point one. Point two, the mechanism where we as a district have at least input is through what's called the Joint Review Board. Okay, different entities are represented. The district can have a representative at the table. We have felt, I know at least during my time here, right, different districts do it differently, but that an elected member of the school board is the best rep. And if something happens at the last minute and say Mike's planning to go to the meeting and he can't, you know, I will go and make sure that there's a representative. But rather me, kind of as your employee as the board, we'd rather have a board member present whenever possible. That's point two. And point three, if you recall, several years ago, and around the time of the whole city reassessment, right, and there's some confusion there, which the city has said, hey, that's not gonna happen again, all right? We as a board, and not all of you were on the board at that time, which was fine, indicated, in fact, we had some board members during COVID time, sit down in the middle school commons with some city council members, right? Marty and Josh from the city, Jake and me, you know, like we were present as the staff, but it was some city council and board members talking about, hey, this TID thing, we gotta have better communication. Mayor Ward came into that meeting and he said, I totally agree. The city will have good communication with the district and work through the joint review process. So we don't have a situation where the public doesn't know what's going on. And then when there's a joint review board meeting, right? 2 weeks before the meeting, all of a sudden we get a packet of information. I have personally heard Mayor Ward and at least 2 different noon Rotary presentations in 2 different locations give kind of a state of what's going on in the city with tips and tips and right. Mayor Ward, if you know, right, he's got an economist mind. The guy knows what he's talking about. He's got a sheet that he would share with anyone. And so I think the city really has, I think, heard our board concerns that we want to be a good partner and we want the city to develop and we want our staff and families to have a place to live for sure. But there's certain things that need to occur. And I think they've been very responsive to that. So those are, I guess, the 3 things I wanted to hit on, not just for the board, but for anyone tracking this. Anything else we're missing there, Mike? Or
No, I would, okay, I'll give you one from the joint review board. When we had the presentation, all of them are working very well. The only one that was a little late, which you may understand, is the West Waterfront. Right, that's the one that's just a little behind, and I don't have to, you probably know numerous news stories for the last 10 years about it. So that's the only one, but there too, things are going on there and it's moving forward and you know, hopefully that all gets rectified eventually. But everything else looks good. So
Thanks for explaining that, guys, because I remember years ago when all the developments were happening with like the waterfront and stuff. Not understanding how all that worked with like, you know.
It's a little complex.
Yeah, it totally is, but it's you know, it would be nice to wish that, boy, let's not help, or we don't have to help for that. But if you don't, you really don't get the development. I mean, that's what I've kind of learned on this, and I don't think it's just speak, it's just, that's the way it is in any town in USA, it's not just Sturgeon Bay, right? So anyway.
The last thing I can think of, unless a board member has a question or comment after that, is Mike and I talk about this all the time, but I regularly communicate to the city, and as administrator there, Josh Van Leeshout has acknowledged and heard me say it many times, like, we understand the need for all the different types of housing units. But as a public school district, we certainly would like to see more single-family homes, right? And again, my previous, mentioned Ripon College earlier with someone we're hiring, my previous community Ripon, right? They went very heavily into the multi-family homes, right? And again, they're not as landlocked as we are, so there's some different dynamics, right? And, you know, part of, you know, community was gonna change anyway, right? All communities right across Wisconsin and our nation, certainly there are changes. But, right, if we go very heavily into multifamily and we don't keep the single family in place, right? There are some dynamics there where we, whether as a school board or as parents or as individuals, like, oh, we want to make sure that there are single family homes for our families to get. So they know that they're working on some different developments that are focusing more on single family homes. But yeah, it's a challenge, but I guess I want to assure the board, and again, anyone watching our board meetings, that yes, we encourage the city to do what it can to pursue single family homes, and there's more coming.
Good. Then we have, 0.8, accept the annual financial report.
Yes, we have in your packet, a couple of different reports related to that. I'll just read the brief notes here of one, a sentence or two. Annual financial report is included in the board meeting packet. Jake has shared this report along with notes earlier in the month, back on December 3rd. Again, he can provide any additional background tonight as requested. So a motion to approve the audit report is recommended.
I'll make a motion to accept the annual financial audit report.
I'll second.
Who was the second?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Meyer. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Jennerjohn, seconded by Commissioner Meyer to accept the audit report as presented in your packet. Further discussion?
Maybe I'll just say, Mike, that again, early in my time here, the board felt going with maybe a little more of an expansive audit report and process. I know I see Commissioner Jennerjohn nodding, right, was probably what the board needed to do. So we have done that in more recent years, and certainly since Jay came on board with going through that RFP process and really looking, again, you see the Kerber rows here when, you know, they work with other entities in the community. County Economic Development Corporation would be one of a number of examples. I serve on their board too, so I know that they do the audit for us over there. So again, definitely in alignment with the board's wishes, we have gone through much more substantive audit in a number of years, or for a number of years now. And every so often, we also look at the possibility of opening that up with the RFP process. Anything you would add there, Jake? No? Thank you.
All right, further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Then we're down to a special update, uniform grants guidance and the Education Department General Administrative Guidelines first reading.
Yeah, if those acronyms UG and EDGAR don't really get you excited about a school board meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know what they.
Notice I didn't even say.
This is Denise, boy, I thank her for helping me tremendously with this sort of stuff. Before we had the current office set up, right, I was doing this sort of stuff, and it was, whew, right, as we talk to the board, sometimes what do we have our superintendent working on? So thank you, Ann. So really, what we've got here with this special update, right, is in response to a release of revisions from the Uniform Grant Guidance Regulations back in spring. We see this acronym Office of Management and Budget, OMB, revise some different parts of guidance for grants and agreements. And again, you've seen in policy things, a lot of things happen with grants and the federal government. And I see Commissioner Chisholm nodding as working with the county. You know how a lot of this can go, right? So you see those different code of federal regulations, right? So looking at alignment there, right? All federal agencies, including the Department of Ed, or to issue revisions effective for all these different federal awards on or after this fall and October. So that's where you see all these different pieces lining up. And then in essence, I'll flip over to the next page there. Right, it talks about those grants issued prior to that date, as well as things that are in effect really through September of this fall. And then there's these other pieces, right? One bullet point incorporating statutory requirements and administration priorities, reducing agency and recipient burden. Next one, clarifying sections that recipients or agencies have interpreted in different ways. And the last one, rewriting applicable sections in plain language. We could argue if it's all plain language, but I digress. Improving flow and addressing inconsistent use of terms within the guidance, right? So those are those points Neola kind of sketches out for us. And then the last sentence of explanation before the list the short list I will read. OMB's revisions are intended to improve federal financial assistance management, transparency, and oversight through more accessible and easily understandable guidance. So really 9A, 3440, 4440 dealing with job-related expenses, 9B, 6110 grant funds, 9C, 6111 internal controls, which again gets commented on usually in the report, right? And Jake touches on that typically at a district our size. 9D, 6114 cost principles, spending federal funds. There you see the federal reference, of course. 9E, 7310 disposal of personal property. And then that's an issue with grants, of course. And then 9F, bless you, 7450 property inventory. So again, there weren't individual explanations as Ann and I were talking about. There was really just this introduction. So we said, I'll read the introduction, list those. Again, that's a first reading, not terribly exciting, a lot of regulations there, but we're doing our due diligence. Thank you for your patience.
Nice job. So then we are down to reports. So, I guess we should, does anyone have anything before we get to the high school report? Any legislative or CISA or committee seminars, that anybody's done that we should talk about? Hearing none, administrative, report, I guess, here we go.
Principal Nerby, come on down. While he's coming down, I'll just kind of comment as the board knows, and it was in my report. Some of you got a message from me today, right? As far as boards and conferences, right? But the education convention is next month, right? We know we have some folks planning to go, some folks not able to go, but one way or another, we will have board representatives down in January for at least a part of that week. Jake will go down in the usual schedule from Tuesday to Friday. I will only go down Wednesday and come back Thursday because the girls play Tuesday night and Thursday night. So I'll shorten it up, but we'll have people. And I know we have a couple board members hoping to go down, but maybe for the day or maybe for a day and a half. So we'll kind of figure it out this year. But I've got an itinerary. If the board member hasn't seen it yet, who has indicated he or she is planning to go, that I emailed kind of a one pager today. So you kind of have the gist, everybody's number. Like each day, kind of what happens, what the evening festivities are, as far as meeting other board members and all that good stuff and so forth. So that went out. When you get a chance to peek at your school board email next, you'll see that from me. With that said, Principal Nerby.
Thank you. In your board packets in the written report, I shared some of the updates about our pre-ACT. We met with students, talked with them one-on-one. So each teacher met with their homeroom students one-on-one, went over their pre-ACT results, which is always a really kind of a rich conversation when students take ownership in kind of those results. And then they created goals for the pre-ACT that they'll be taking in the spring. So that was a nice activity that we did this past about 2 weeks ago with all of our students with those results coming back. Those results will be being mailed out to families as well. So they'll see those results coming in the next couple of weeks. I did want to just end that this week is always an exciting week. There's always a lot going on. I know I've seen some of you at some of the events that have been happening, but we had a band concert on Monday. Of course, the students were outstanding. It was just a phenomenal concert. I told Mrs. Hintz after, I would put our band up against any, I think, band that I've seen. I think we're not the biggest band, but boy, did they play with just some gusto, and it was really cool to see to get us into the season. So that was fantastic. We are supposed to have the choir concert tomorrow. Not saying anything, but we'll see what tomorrow night looks like. But again, I've had the privilege of kind of sneaking in and seeing some of the rehearsals and that, and it is quite the show. So hopefully we'll be able to get that in only because it's just a great way to send off for the holiday season because the students have worked so hard on that. We also, as we end this week, we have a talent show. You know, if you're bored and you're looking for something to do, come on to the high school. About 1:30, we end the, as we've done this tradition now for a number of years, but we head off into winter break doing a talent show of our students. We have about 14 students and a staff act that will be performing a talent show, which is just a lot of fun. I use the term talent show. We've changed it to variety show for terminology's sake. So we have a variety show. Let me just say that. And then Friday night, we end Friday night with a home boys basketball game against Southern Door. Of course, the girls play as well in Algoma. So good luck to our teams as they head out before the holiday break as well. And then just a reminder to our families that we return on Thursday, January 2nd. And it's a quick turnaround for high school and for secondary as we close out the first semester already. So January 16th and 17th is the end of first semester. So we have exams at the high school those days. Early release days of 11:45 as students take 2 exams or blocks 1 and 2 on Thursday and blocks 3 and 4 on Friday. So it's coming strong. I just want to remind our students and families out there watching to finish the semester strong. It is going to be over before we know it. So that's what I've got.
Principal Smallin, come on down. I was gonna ask them about the talent versus variety show title, because I've heard that from several people. It's kind of fun.
Just wanna review, you guys, I think many of you heard, we have our musical, and I say here we have a new musical director for the high school because we had our 33 students perform for the all the elementary kids and then for the adults in the community. 613 elementary kids have seen the show. 33 kids put this together, 8th graders. So nice to see this program going on for about 38 years now. So it's a great thing that teachers are doing and the kids are doing. As we move into this week, we're wrapping up December. Spirit Week, dress up days, penny wars to raise money, Toys for Tots. And then we had kids earn opportunities to go to a UWGB men's basketball game, which oddly enough, they lost to Michigan Tech, which is a Division II school. So yeah, sad days for GB there on the court. Positives though, only 8 students have been suspended this year. So that's great. 3.5%, right? We want that number low so the kids are at school. So that means 222 are not. 40 students have perfect attendance. 201 students have less than 5 days absence. So just put it in perspective, even 137, it's almost 60% of the kids have missed 2 days or less. We need kids at school. This is a nationwide problem. For the last 5 years, trying to get kids back here to attend consistently, like miss less than 10 days. That is our building goal, 95%. We need kids to miss literally 7 days or less this year. So you understand, we push this with all our pasta plays. Yeah, it's one of the precursors to go to the GB trip. Be on time to class. Only 23 kids have more than three tardies. That means like about 60% have 0 tardies. That means that workplace employment, they can get from A to B on time, do what they're supposed to do. And then because of this, basically 140 kids got to go on this trip. And then just thinking about this, we give Clipper cards. 522 is what we're at right now. It means 522 handwritten notes by staff. And you think of like giving these little Clipper bucks. We have given out over 11,000 Clipper bucks so far this year. Just positive incentives that we see in the classroom. So that's like kind of like the naughty and nice list from the end of December. So that's what's happening. See you all in January.
Thank you, Principal Smallin. Speaking of Principal Smallin, come on down, Principal Smallin.
Thank you. All right. Well, we wrapped up our holiday concert yesterday. It was memorable. It really was. Mrs. Feaster did a really awesome job. There was snow at the end, so the kids had ripped up little pieces of snow and so it was Bring on the Snow or Let the Beatles song. Yeah. A lot of snow. So we are really grateful for all the families who helped to pick up and our amazing custodial staff. There was a lot of work to be done afterward, but it was really memorable and the kids did a great job. So really proud of them and all the work. There was drummers, and this year, Mr. Villers and I did not speak. It was the 5th graders who took over and they spoke clearly and they translated in Spanish. It was really, we were really proud of them. We're doing a giving project at Sunrise right now as we head into the holidays, so gathering non-perishable food items for people with my people, so just trying to like build that compassion. That's going well, doing, you know, some fun things around this time of year as well. We do our student climate survey mid-year always, and so just got some good data back from that, and that'll drive our PBIS, like all of our, you know, how do we help improve our student climate and those PBIS awards. So the question one, I just have highlighted a couple. My student wants me to do well. 71.8% said always, they always want me to do, we'd let them know, yes, we always want you to do well. And then 19.3% just often. So anyway, we're moving from there. Good behavior is noticed at my school. 15.8% said always, and then 45.5% said often, and then we had 32.7% said sometimes. So that's something that we take that data and we try to get better at noticing, like all the good things that are happening and giving we have Clipper Cash, and then they can earn things like one of the favorites is stroll with an SRO. So Officer Jenner John takes a student and a friend who both earn it to Culver's, and they get a little ice cream and that's a very expensive, lot of Clipper Cash to earn the stroll with SRO, but they really love that. So we also did our family PBIS survey to get data back from families, some really good data coming back from that. We want families to feel welcome and safe and know like that we are approachable and that their kids are in a great spot. So the question, my child's elementary school is a supportive and inviting place for students to learn. That was 95% of families. And adults at my child's elementary school care about my child. It was again 95%. So we'll keep working on the 5%. So let them know. And that's where we're at. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. As Principal DeVillers comes on down, Katie Smullen, is your crew going to help John Sullivan's crew with snow movement since he moved snow last night? Yeah, that's right. You got it all figured out. Yeah, that's right. Principal DeVillers, welcome to the podium. Hello.
There are some academics going on, but just like everyone has reported, there's a lot of fun things going on. So you're right now, so I'm going to tell you about those. First of all, the concert, I just want to reiterate what Katie said. Wonderful experience yesterday. Cheryl does an outstanding job. The help after was very much appreciated. And we had our 4K cake concert today, thanks to Keith and the high school folks for letting us come to the auditorium and have that. If you've never experienced it, it's really cool. And there's always something happening on stage other than singing sometimes, because they're little kids trying to stand still, even though it's a short concert. So that if you got to see the concert last night or today, or parents out there, thank you for coming and supporting. One thing that went along with that is we did talk about the playground last night and again today. And in 2 days, just asking for a little support, we raised over $700. So that was really nice. Beside the concerts, tomorrow's a winter celebration, different classrooms doing different activities at Sawyer to celebrate this time of the season. Our Clipper Cash store has been going on. Cheryl Feaster has it in the music room. I'm not sure how she does all that and all that she does, but kids are taking home things that maybe other people don't necessarily want, that they're buying with their Clipper Cash. They walk out of school. One little boy brought out a frame as big as he was the other day, and I'm sure parents are appreciating that. Getting to buy presents for their family using their Clipper Cash, it's really a fun thing to see as well. Let's see, concerts. Oh, I can't miss this. So I don't know if you saw this on the Facebook page or not, but we came up with the idea of having a door decorating contest at Sawyer. And it was the first time we'd ever done it. And I've learned a couple of things. We have a very creative staff and they're very competitive, very, very competitive. It was fun. It was a neat thing for the staff to do. Prizes were awarded, and Spencer reported that we'd have over 100,000 views. So I don't know if votes or views, I think views, but a lot of people voted as well. So that was a really cool, fun thing. So you get a chance to walk through Sawyer before the snowstorm hits. Come on down and check it out. That's it.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah.
Director Weber is making her way to the podium. I can't tell from this angle if the glowing heat vest is on or not.
It is.
So there we go. I'm gonna say it's the wrong side. I couldn't tell. She's gotta stay warm.
wasn't planned to keep talking about Cheryl Feaster, but that, not surprisingly to us, is the thing that I wanted to talk to you about very briefly. I'm gonna save the Act 20 updates for after break. It's your Christmas gift. Cheryl Feaster and I, but mostly Cheryl Feaster, is in charge every year. Now, this has become an annual thing, our community programming event. And this, of course, is where our staff and community members get an opportunity to showcase their talents and get community members inside of our facilities to do fun things. So that enrollment or sign up is currently going on. Cheryl, I can't say enough about her. And if you know her, you know this is true, so I shouldn't have to say much. She's amazing. She basically throws the whole thing together and then pretends that I help her and thanks me a lot. So I do what I can from the tech standpoint, but anyway, at this point, enrollment is open for community classes, community programming. You can find registration and information on our website. Currently, we have 122 people signed up. Now that was at 3:05 this afternoon. We have some old favorites returning, including Fab Lab, where people from the community get to go into our fabrication labs and weld and woodwork and do all those fun things, along with You Can Do It, of course, ukulele instruction. Mr. Spritka, I feel like you should. Okay. Taught by Cheryl Feaster. Also, new hits. This may not surprise you, but our two biggest signups so far for new classes are scone baking and spaghetti sauce making, both hosted by our very own Andamise. There you go, see? Look at you drumming up support for your classes. There are quite a few people already signed up. So those classes begin in January and run throughout the winter. So again, information can be found on our website. Check it out. And with that, I'll turn it over to Director Berry. Thanks.
As they transition, our board a number of years ago, right, some of your predecessors really wanted to see some community classes take off for a variety of positive reasons, right? And a few years in the making, we launched the first one, and then after that, COVID happened, and then we couldn't do it for a few years, right? So we lost a little bit of steam, but Cheryl and Jen, right, the internal communication and our staff members, Ann and others, right, like, hey, well, let's try this, let's take this, and now let's offer this. It's just led to some cool interactions, especially, as we look at the winter ahead and a great time that people need to connect with each other and all those things. So again, number of people have been involved in that. Can't say thanks to them enough for the positive interaction that leads to. Lindsay.
And before I forget, not part of my board report, but thank you, Anne, for the spaghetti sauce for Christmas. She put it in my office and I forgot all day, but that just reminded me, if I don't say it now, I'm gonna lose it again. So thank you. Super excited to try it, and I'll let you all know how it is. But what I wanted to share with you tonight is just a little bit more information about the virtual programming position that you approved tonight for Jenny Applegate. So I got to thinking about how we can better utilize some of the things that we already have going in the district. We already lease space over at the Boys and Girls Club for our DCAP, our Door County Alternative Program. And with that, we have some online learning platforms to support the academic learning of those students that we use for those students, and we use kind of sprinkled throughout the entire district. And so I thought, well, if we already have those things, how can we, do something different in Sturgeon Bay that could potentially increase our enrollment without, without spending a ton of money. And so I thought, well, what are the numbers? I worked with Amy Lattenbach, and how many kids are we losing to either open enrollment out of district for virtual learning and or homeschool students that might be participating in their own learning? And so I saw those numbers and they were a little bit staggering. So I broke it down into who have we lost just this year. And those numbers were still a little bit staggering to me. So I thought, well, went to Dan, can I go after him? Can I, come up with something to go after some of those students that we've lost for virtual programs and make it an incentive to stay with us? And so long story short, I put together, the vision of what I thought the program could look like. And then I knew Jenny from last year, knew she wanted to come back to the district, and with her background, her experience in education, thought she'd be a really good fit. And so, that's the why in we're doing it and what it kind of looks like so far. So Jenny came on board. she's been researching and planning. There's gonna be two different components to the virtual program and how we have it outlined right now. Keep in mind, she's only been working for about 4 business days on this, and so it's going to change, but just so you have an idea of what we're aiming for. We're gonna have one full virtual component to it. So students who, you know, for whatever reason, I want to do online learning. I think that might be easier for me. I want to do it from home. Great. We want to support you in that, but we want to support it through our own district. So right now we don't have those options and students leave us, open enroll elsewhere. And so this way we'd be able to say, great, try this program. We've got it here. You're still our student and we still get to support you. So we'd enroll them in their individual classes based on skill set, based on credits, no matter what grade they are. And the difference in what we can do and what we can provide is, you know, in comparison to an RVA, a Wisconsin Virtual Academy, Connections Academy, some of those bigger names that you see probably on commercials during football games, is that we have an in-person staff support available to help students. So it's not just, you know, go online, take it from home and best of luck to you. You know, we're going to check in with you. And if you don't show up, well, you don't show up, right? Because parents are working. We'll have a designated space to help students. So Jenny will serve as the person who schedules students in if they're not doing that well or they're falling behind, like, hey, you got to come in today and tomorrow, we're gonna get you caught up. Or serve as a Monday through Friday home base for students to do their virtual learning work. And so, you know, if students want to stay home and do it and they have the support to do it from home, great. If parents want more structure for their students, we'd be able to offer not just that location, but a staff person to help oversee. In addition, it's a nice liaison position between the virtual classes. Say, you know, we've got chemistry and we need a Mr. Test for some help on the virtual platform. Well, Jenny's going to be able to go get Mr. Test and say, help me through this. How do I help this child with this homework? And or Mr. Test would be able to come over and offer that support. So it'll be a little bit more personable, you know, in terms of how we want to provide that support in a virtual learning program. The other option that we're looking at is credit recovery. So myself and area directors met about a month ago and we were looking at alternative pathways towards graduation. What else can we do for our kids? How can we, you know, create a different option? Many districts are going to a GED 2 option. We call it a GEDO option, which basically means you get to take the GED test and that would give you a high school diploma. Looks a little bit different, but it's a high school diploma and you get to do that in high school. I don't really like to do what everyone else is doing. So I thought, well, I'm going to do something different with it. And what if we create a credit recovery program for some of our at-risk students? So students who are in 11th and 12th grade, if we pull them into this program, if we do credit recovery courses, we get them caught up, right? And so they're actually doing the work. They're not just taking the test, which is great for some students, but not for all because it's a hard test. But we help them through their coursework so that they can then finish their courses, get the credits and graduate on time with their classmates is the goal. And so it's just a different option that they have to get caught up quicker rather than being in traditional school classes, right? You're there every day, you have to do the homework, you know, sometimes you just run out of time. And so we're looking at those two options in this one house of virtual programming right now. And then that's what Jenny and I are working on. So probably way more than you wanted or needed to know, but thought you needed a little background on what we're working on.
How much different is that from what Nate Sully does with all the online?
Yeah, good
He's got a
question.
big online group of kids, right? That he checks in early, late, in the middle.
Right in this room, actually.
How is that? Yeah, how's that? Is there overlap?
Yes,
Not
and depending on programming. So right now we contract in the high school with Wisconsin Virtual Academy. So we pay per course for those students. And what he does is he oversees students who either need a place that are already our students here. And maybe I'm in 3 classes and that 4th class I'm going to do online and I'm going to do it here.
Sure.
So they're not total virtual learners or, and keep me correct if I'm wrong. I think there are a few students that are total virtual learners and some maybe come in every now and then, take a test and so forth. So he's a liaison more or less for the high school students taking those higher level classes that they can do independently.
Sure.
Our students that we're really targeting are maybe students who don't have skills to be as successful independently. And maybe leave the district because they think online learning is better or they're tired and they want to try something else, right? And then they find out quickly online learning is really hard. And if you don't have time management skills or somebody overseeing it, you can fall further behind rather quickly. And what my data has shown in digging into some of the numbers is that those kids that do it that way always come back to us. And so then they come back a year behind, 2 years behind and so forth. So if we can get them in a program, still have our arms wrapped around them, help boost them up, and then try to get them back into our schools, or they stay virtual, you know, at least we still have our arms wrapped around them. Yeah.
Well, we have the capacity to take in other districts' kids.
That's the goal,
Okay,
right? There's
good.
always that hook
Yeah.
in, and that's why I didn't want to do a GED 2 option, because if you're all doing it, right, I want to do something different.
Right.
And then I want to charge you to take your kids, right? Like, let me take your credit recovery kids, let me take online learners, we're right here. And I think that's an attractive spin that we can do. I don't know that we'll be ready to do that this semester. We're gonna, again, start like we did with DCAP, to start with our own kids, but then going forward, yeah, I think it would be a nice option for county districts, for students to stay local and get support.
Did you say that they would be able to graduate with their class too? Like,
That's the
I'm just
goal.
getting the GED and, or is that just getting the piece of
Right.
paper and?
Well, and it's been a few years since I've really looked at the GED option, but I believe you have to wait like 6 months, or the GED options, you can do it in high school. If you wait and you don't graduate on time with your peers, then you have to wait like a period of time before you get to take it. So yes, the goal with our program would be you're still doing high school coursework. It's still at your level. You're just going through it in a different option. You know, you're going through it where it's self-paced. You can do it with us. You can do it from home.
Yeah.
Credit recovery goes a little bit quicker. And we still have options to modify some of that work and what it looks like.
I think that's important, because like, you know, you graduate with your class, it's like, wow,
Right.
you can walk the stage and stuff.
Right.
That's-
And I think it's important too, because sometimes we get kids that transfer in 11th, 12th grade and they've got 2 or 3 credits, right? And well, I can't run them through a block schedule and think they're gonna caught up. They just don't even have an opportunity. So what does that say to an 11th grade student, right? Come into school, but you know, you're looking at 2 extra years of high school where we can say, all right, come to our school. We've got an option for you. We know how to help you and get where you wanna go.
that's
So,
neat.
Maybe briefly for the public or a board member that has come on board since your hiring.
Mhm.
You mentioned RVA, for example, right, rolls right off your tongue. What type of work, Lindsay, did you used to do before you became our special ed
Yeah.
director?
So I was actually a special education teacher at-risk coordinator for the Rural Virtual Academy prior to coming here. And I did that before COVID. So did online learning before it was cool to do online learning. And so I have a lot of experience. I did it for 2 years before I came into this position. And so I learned a lot through that. And RVA does a lot of really good things. And what I'm trying to do is take all those really good things and make it a part of ours. One component would be like, you know, field trips or community outings, because that's the big piece of virtual learning, is that you're alone, you're isolated, and that makes me nervous for kids. And so Jenny would organize then activities to do a couple times a month, right? We're gonna go out to Peninsula Park today, drop your kids off. If you need a ride, we'll come get you. And we're gonna go hike, and then you're gonna get to socialize with some of your peers and so forth. So we've got a lot of ideas kind of cooking that I've stolen from RVA, because they do some good work. But yeah, I've got a couple years experience doing that kind of programming. Good question. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get yelled at because that was too long.
Some other things too, you heard her mention veto too, right? There's different acronyms for these different programs, right? HSEDs, GEDs. One of the challenge around some of those programs is the attendance, right? You heard Mark talk about attendance on behalf, right? We all know attendance is important, schoolwork, et cetera. The problem is sometimes kids are at risk of not graduating, or not graduating certainly on time, because of attendance problems, right? So some of these programs, although well-intentioned, right? I know from, you know, my different assistant principal and principal years, it's like, okay, great on paper, but in reality with some of those kiddos, and you know, if they have a parent figure or not, in some cases, it's like, that's not gonna work for them. So it sounds great, however, and that's where these other things like, you know, is it more of a high school equivalency state-sponsored diploma, or ideally, why not have the same graduation requirements as your local high school? But yeah, maybe the way in which you're doing the coursework looks a little different. And yeah, rather than a regular block schedule, okay, here's how you work through that. And I know, again, you know, as board members, and I know this from my previous roles too, like whenever we're getting into reducing graduation requirements, and whether there are, people get all sorts of different emotions and hurt feelings involved. So we try to usually look at and say, look, here's our Sturgeon grade graduation requirements. If a kid's going to be with us, great, let's work with them. Let's help them work toward that. but we might need, one or more other pathways. So again, that's a whole topic in and of itself, but we thought it was worth giving you a little bit of time on that, with Jenny's approval tonight. I think we're Jake.
You see my written report there. I apologize, I didn't get a month end, year-end projection and an HR thing, pop up, the last few days and, a tax thing in Sebastopol. That, I communicated with someone on. But on my written report, a couple of things, the long-term maintenance plan, the grow your own teachers, we'll talk about again. One thing I did want to make sure I do, is give a shout out to Ashley Lilazer and Kim Gordon. We're working on switching over our Skyward, from, it's called web-based, but, to cumulative, a different interface, different way to navigate the financial software. It's the main users of that. They've done a fantastic job of working to get that all set up. And we have now, just this week with payroll today, ran now 3 payrolls that are coming out accurate. So that's really the big thing as we think about our financial software of everything we do, and it's, taxes, all that's important. Making sure that we pay our people, pay them on time and what they're supposed to get. It's probably the biggest on a day-to-day basis. And so that's a huge step, and we feel confident about where we're gonna be when we come to March and the official switchover. That's what we got.
I'll just highlight 1 or 2 things from each section. So in teaching and learning, the one item I alluded to it, education convention right next month. Right, if you have a person that maybe didn't let Ann know, you could still let us know tonight if you plan to attend or would like to attend. So again, otherwise see my my communication for what I sent some of you today. In community engagement, I'll just highlight the one item. Tomorrow evening or afternoon evening from 4 to 8 p.m. Again, you've seen the invitation around town, right? We're a part of a bigger community effort. We're from 4 to 8 at Door County Fire. There's the opportunity to go give input on a couple of things, right? The one is basically what's across the street. That's the one that kind of the city and our district are directly connected with the track, which you've heard, goodness, umpteen times, at least over the past decade, right? So that is a priority for the city and for us to see if something can happen with that track. And as long as you're doing a modern track, what else should be with that? And then there's some other layers to it. And then the other piece that goes well beyond our district, well beyond the city, is really a county-wide effort. And that's, hasn't been talked about for as many years, but that's some folks that are talking about, should there be some sort of indoor facility, whether it has indoor playground, whether it has pickleball court, all those other things that get into some of those other entities, right? So as a board, you are one of several entities that approved money for the feasibility study, right? Chris is a gentleman who works for Ayers Consulting. He's been working through the process. He'll be at the session tomorrow to see of these 2, different things, how does the community feel about them? Is one of them ready to move forward, or, what's that going to look like? And then based on feedback, right, then they get into costs and what would need to be fundraised, et cetera. So again, our part, as you know, is kind of, I don't know if it's right to say the simpler of the 2, but right, the piece across the street with property that the city and us already own. It's just a matter of, can we hopefully in the near future make that track project that's been talked about for so many years finally happen in the right spot over there? So again, feedback, opportunities. Mike, you've attended some meetings too, along with me, just to try to help that bigger committee move this along and get it in front of the community. What would you add?
I would just add that there appears to be quite the momentum, which is really excellent to see. So all of you, really, I would recommend if you could get there just for some time. It's a drop-in type of thing from 4 to 8. So I know there's a snowstorm coming, but it does snow as there was some emails going on around this afternoon, and Josh Van Leeshow from the city had the funniest thing. He just responded, "It snows in Wisconsin." That's it. It was like talking about, what do you do if we move it or whatever? And he's like, no, it snows in Wisconsin. I thought it was very funny. I literally laughed out loud in my office. But,
Don't tell him that, he'll get a big head.
yeah, exactly. But it would be a nice thing just to look and see, because they're gonna have a lot of stuff there. I'm certainly gonna go and we're, you know, it's good for us to just see what is kind of like options and give your feedback. Everybody here's got some opinion, right? This is your chance to.
The board has heard about this and seen this, but really the thinking was, you know, a couple of different scenarios of what the outdoor piece could look like with priorities or phases. Couple of different things on the indoor piece, and again, on behalf of you and our district, right, Mike and I are, you know, far more focused on the outdoor piece, right? And just give people a like, these are possible, nothing's been decided, it's not all funded, although remember, back to the earlier conversation about development, remember the city has said, hey, so far they've earmarked $1.5 million specific to the facility area across the street that would deal, again, with priority one on that list, as you'll see, dealing with the track. So I mean, that aligns with things the board has talked about before. So that's one of several reasons, to Mike's point, like, okay, there seems to be some momentum and some reasons why at least the track piece could move forward. Who knows about the other layers across the street, and who knows about the other facility, but we'll kind of see where it goes.
Actually, we've seen renderings, and they're very impressive. And they are really taking into account a lot of the community feedback we've received so far, but certainly the whole point of this, there's gonna be more community feedback tomorrow night. But I mean, things like, for example, save Memorial Field, you know, like Memorial Field not being moved much, but then other rendering where it is, and what does that mean? And it's interesting. And by no means is it set in stone. It's just, these are some options. I think it's really good for people, because through the years, many of the long-term board members, how many people have come to the board talking about whatever point they are passionate about across the street, right? We've had
And there have
numerous.
been drawings made
Yes,
in the past.
yes, which, just so everybody realizes, those drawings were actually forwarded, all of that was forwarded to the current regime that's working on this. So nothing went to waste. So it's more, okay, build on that. So.
And I think the last steering committee meeting, maybe just end on this, unless someone has a question. And really, I think the committee felt strongly like we want to help the public, which kind of, there's the city piece and the county piece, just understand. So nothing is super magical or approved by you or the city council or whatever, but just trying to name it, right? So we kind of came up with Memorial Athletic Park in Sturgeon Bay. That's that outdoor piece, right? Because it has some fields, it has some park. Memorial Field, right? The city hears about that, I think, even more than we do, right? So helping people, oh, that's one piece, right? Well, we've shared that with some folks too, like that makes sense. And then the other thing, again, not set in stone, but like Peninsula Indoor Park and Rec. Well, now that does involve the county, that involves the peninsula, right? That goes beyond, you know, the city district partnership, and who knows where a facility there could be located. They'll have feedback options on that. Who knows what it could entail. And so basically people who show up tomorrow, other than seeing renderings, right, there's more or less like a little takeaway postcard that'll have a QR code on it that will, and again, for those who don't want to do the QR code thing, right, we reminded the consultant, just like when we do a survey, we have paper available. So if someone comes in and wants to do that, that they'll have a chance to do that. So no one wants to sit through a long presentation. And the consultants know that too. So that's why they said, hey, open house. We have a lot of success with people stopping in. If they want to stop in for 15 minutes or they want to stop in for 2 hours, whatever they're welcome. So we'll see.
Tell all my friends with young kids, because lots of people with young kids would love to have an indoor playground in the winter. That's such a good idea. There's like not that much to do in the winter here for people.
And every rendering I've seen for the indoor has a space for that.
Yeah.
It depends how big, depending on the rendering and stuff, depends how big it is, but it's in every one.
Nice.
So
Is the county at the table with this too?
there are,
I mean, not county, I mean, the county of Door, is it part of this? Like the city is the county, do they have people? No.
yes, there's I guess I would answer it with this way, there's
a couple ways there.
there's an email list that goes out to a lot of people involved in this, and there are people from the county on this list as well. So yes, county is it, do we have, is the county supervisor in these meetings every time? No, and I like to kind of, this isn't calling him out, I mean, I don't think they're to that level yet, right? So that's kind of the answer, because but it's definitely being, this is supposed to be all encompassing, especially the outdoor one, right?
But yeah, county and county board comes up all the time when the group goes into that indoor conversation, what
Yes.
needs to happen.
It's exciting, but it could be stages, right? It could be one part in the outdoor and then, you know, I don't know. They're not, this isn't, I don't believe, this is just my opinion. I don't think it's all gonna happen at one time, right?
Yeah,
don't know.
I think, again, I'll say it, Mike, so you don't have to, you're the elected official, I work for this body, right? As your representative, I have indicated to the city and the city's representative, Josh Van Leeshout, right? And Helen Bacon's at the table too, right? Parks and Rec, right, as city council, they know like, hey, for us. And the city has agreed so far, like, a top priority is something across the way with that park area with track. As long as you're doing track in the modern era, there's certain things that are pretty typically done in the middle. Why wouldn't we try to make that happen? As far as other pieces, we'll see. And again, then there's that other facility, which is a whole nother thing. So yeah, we'd love to see it.
Good. Anything else in your report?
I'll stop on that.
All right. I would just say, just for anyone watching at home, and we are, please let people know that might be interested in the school board. We have them approach. And Denise is right here. She has candidacy papers.
Yeah, paperwork ready.
Interested in running for school board. That's really good. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Hall, second by Commissioner Jenner to adjourn. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?